Confession time. I have a really hard time remembering to use legendary actions at the end of players' turns. But the good news is, if you're using Foundry Virtual Tabletop, or another virtual tabletop of your choice, I have some cool tips and tricks to share with you that might help you not do the same. What's up, gamers? I'm Josh, and this is Copper Dragon Games. I'm always reflecting on how to improve my games of Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to help you do the same. So if you're interested in being a better Dungeon Master in your games, click that subscribe button and make sure you hit the bell so you get notifications for future content. Oh yeah, legendary actions. I forgot again. Let's get to that.
Alright, so for context, this is the battle map that my players just ended the last session with. They've been exploring and they're about to encounter this legendary tentacle monster. The map that they're on is made by Heroic Maps, which I'll link to in the description below. And the tokens are from lots of different places, and I'm going to have to figure out where I need to give credit for those. If you happen to notice one of those tokens that I haven't given due credit to the artist, please point that out to me, and I will correct that immediately. In any case, we're here to talk about those legendary actions and make sure that you don't forget to use them on your players' turns. The first bit of advice I have is to find some kind of token to represent those actions in the game. In a previous video, I talked about the possibility of duplicating the monster and using the duplicate copies to represent the legendary actions. And that works totally fine, but I actually have a somewhat easier solution, and that is to create a legendary action token just on its own that you can use for any legendary creature your players come across in the game. Now, you can use whatever token you want to represent these, but in a weird moment of silly creativity, I put together a handful of these tokens to use if you happen to have a silly, goofy sense of humor like I do. I'll share those with you in a few minutes, but the point is you need a token to represent those actions if you want to track them efficiently. So let's say our players are ready to start this combat. We'll go ahead and add them to the initiative count. Then we add the old tentacle monster to the board and add the tentacle monster to combat. And before we roll initiative, we end up with the 4 party members plus the beast, which is the giant tentacle monster that they're going to be tangling with in a few moments. You can go ahead and roll initiative at this point. And this is where those monster tokens come in handy. We want to go into the initiative count and add legendary action tokens. Those legendary actions will actually come up during the initiative count, so we get little reminders as the turn progresses. And we do that with these handy little legendary action tokens. Let me zoom in. As I said, I was having a silly, goofy, creative moment when I threw these together, and since these legendary creatures interrupt the initiative count at places where normally monsters are not able to, I thought it'd be funny to have a little "I'ma let you finish" legendary action. So anyway, we have 3 of these because we have 3 legendary actions typically. Note that these are invisible because when we add them to the initiative order, we don't want players to be able to see them. So we'll add them to the initiative order. They will be invisible there as well. And we actually don't care about rolling their initiative because we're going to set their initiative manually. We're going to update the combatant, and we're going to put one of these behind several of our players. So we'll make this one 6. So that one happens right after this player. We'll update this one and make it, I just noticed how close these initiative counts are. I have 3 out of 5 combatants that tied on initiative. I actually haven't tried this yet, but let's see if it'll let me be that specific. Sweet. Popped it right in between there. Then we'll put the other one at the end of Protima's turn. In hindsight, I'm actually going to switch this because I tend to avoid these times where the last legendary action is used right before the creature's turn. So let's put this at 18 even. And then we have a more even split of character, monster, character, monster, character, monster, character, monster. Now, bonus section, I also do very similar things with both legendary resistances and recharge abilities. So I also have a little recharge reminder token that I can add to the board. make invisible, and then add it to combat. So when I'm on the combat tracker, I can update this to take place right before the monster's turn. And then every time the monster takes a turn, I have a quick little reminder to check to see if their actions recharge. Now, used in this way, these tokens, as cheesy as they are, will only get a chuckle from you as the DM because you're making them invisible. However, I do like putting the legendary resistance token on the map so that players can see it whenever a legendary resistance is used. You certainly don't have to share with your players when monsters are using their legendary resistances, but in this case we have a funny little icon representing the monster just shrugging off their attacks. This can give your players a quick little visual representation of how far they have come as far as whittling down the monster's defenses. If, of course, you want to share that type of information with them. Use at your discretion. These are probably not the most appropriate for a super serious campaign, but I think they're cheesy and fun. If you want these and a handful of other tokens that I use that are similar, you can find a link to where you can download these in the description below, or you can also find them on my website, copperdragongames.com. They are free. Technically, they're pay what you want, but that's essentially free because you don't have to pay anything for them if you don't want.
And that, folks, is how I keep track of my legendary monsters in Foundry Virtual Tabletop. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what you heard, learned something new, or just enjoyed hanging out, I want to encourage you to click that subscribe button at the bottom, and don't forget to click the bell as well so you don't miss any future updates. If you're enjoying my content, you can also head over to copperdragongames.com for more of it. I'll be back next time with more tips and tricks to improve your game of Dungeons & Dragons. We'll see you then.